Southern Railway Memphis Division, 1975-ish. A little bit of a, I won't say a quandary, but just kind of a thought process thing that I've got going. So I have the crossing over the creek here, which as a kid I experienced a lot. I mean, we chased a lot of trains down across the highway here, headed up towards the coal transfer plant at Pride, and down, further down from that, the Culver Steam Plant. So this is something that I did experience a lot as a kid. So, you get the road bridge here, railroad bridge in behind, and again, you can see from the original height here that it was elevated, much higher at a later point from its original height of these lower piers. It was added onto and elevated to reduce the grade. And again, this is the old original Memphis and Charleston Railroad grade from, is again one of the earliest railroads in the eastern half of the United States. So the history here is truly goes way back. So there's a lot to be seen here. But in the time that I remember, this bridge was always at the level it is now. So you have a definitive, height difference between the road bridge and the railroad bridge. And I think at the level it's sitting at right now, that's, decently close. But again, if you notice, and this is, single level, 1-inch foam up here under supporting structures. So I have two choices to really get this, level correct. I either got to lower this bridge, which would incorporate, bringing, and again, this has to come down a little bit. So bringing this down into here, and this is the swing, opening at the doorway. So that would require, some significant rework of the eventual, swing out here, which and it does. I mean, it's gapped here. It'll eventually have a hinge here, and this will swing out this way. It's set up for that. I just have to mount the hinges, and that's why this 2x4 is here, so that these, the hinge screws into something that is, very solid and very stable, so that as this thing moves, and again, same thing with the lower one when it eventually gets here. So this whole thing will swing out as a unit. At least that's the plan in my head. So the idea that it's like, all right, if I got to cut down to this, it really is like, all right, it makes this look weird. So I'm like, all right, what do I do? So, but then the other option is, hey, let's raise the back one. Raise this line. Well, it's like, all right, well, again, the ruling grade coming out of Sheffield going west is the grade coming up the bridge here, up through this little cut. This is the ruling grade on the entire line going westbound. It's coming out of Tuscumbia there, across the bridge, up the hill, and cresting at the railroad crossing here, which is, again, is where this crossing here, which will be at this point modeled about right here. So, okay. But again, my railroad, my rules. Do I really need to crest it right here on this road? I could literally continue to have this, come upgrade, and then when I say upgrade, I mean, I'm talking like minor. But again, be an inch taller here. Does a couple things for me. Yes, gets this elevated without having to, come down any further than where we are already right now for the road. Gets that look, a little bit closer to what it is, looks like in the picture here. And gets this line higher so that eventually one of my oldest ideas is that over the top of the helix will be the Pride loader, the coal transload from the Tennessee River to railroad cars, which was sent, and so they ran the coal train. Again, this is, you know, the coal train that I continuously have at least one of sitting on the layout, you know, almost at all times. There's the other one. Yes, they're empty. Loaded trains down here. And it was loaded here at the Pride Transload here in just literally just west of this bridge. So the turnout will ultimately end up being right here, and it would go straight into a loop structure that would be over the top of the helix for the Pride Transloader. Now, really, in grand scheme of things, is that really something that is possible? That's a really good question. But again, in my iterative design theory of, you know, building a railroad, raising this line up another, let's just say an inch or so, you know, one more piece of foam here. So instead of here, it's going to be here. Definitely adds that, you know, more to that capability of getting a line. Because again, to get an entire loop of railroad here over the top of, you know, this line, which again, we can push further out this way to the edge, you know, to, you know, out here, and have an entire loop of the transloader over the top of it and have it be functional. I won't say functional, but at least be able to train, you know, drive the loop. So again, there would be, you know, in the real world, there's a Y that, you know, one line goes that way and the line comes this way, and there's a loop in between. All right, that Y is going to be too tight to really roll a train through, especially the connection through here. But I'm pretty sure put an empty train in there at the end of one session, and swap it out for the loaded one for the beginning of the next session. Definitely something, you know, that is possible, you know, for the railroad, and definitely something that would add an incredible amount of operating interest to the railroad. And there's definitely room in this loop for the full length Pride, you know, coal train that I've envisioned for this layout, which is, suddenly the number escapes me. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, a brain car, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 32 cars, 5 locomotives, and a brain car, which would fit, you know, inside this loop. So that's the question. So it's like, all right, so if we raise that an inch, it definitely pushes that towards, you know, more feasible. Makes me not have to dig further down into this to bring this bridge down to a, you know, more appropriate level. So, and then just, you know, again, to get an inch up here, it doesn't take much to go from there. And again, this is a ruling grade in the real world anyway, so makes the 5 and 6, you know, locomotive, you know, trains that, you know, that you saw through this area and at the time way more realistic. So that's what I'm working on. So just again, you know, as the ideas come through, that's, you know, what I'm doing. So all right, we'll talk to you guys later. Enjoy, and appreciate you guys listening and watching.